Hi, everyone. I'm Valentina Flores, CEO of Red Sentry, and this is the Ctrl-Alt-Secure podcast where we talk about all things cybersecurity. And today, I'm really excited to have Dr. Bennet Hammer here today. He is the founder and president of Hammer IT. They have a lot of different areas of expertise, but I wanted to bring him on here today to specifically talk about email security and some of the work they're doing in that area. So thanks for being here. If you want to just kind of give us your background and tell us a little bit about Hammer IT.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Yeah, my name is Dr. Bennet Hammer. I'm the president and founder of Hammer IT Consulting. We're a cybersecurity consulting company based out of Florida, but we work with nationally and internationally with clients, making sure that the most important asset is secured, which is their data. So we
Yeah.
do anything from pen testing to risk assessments, making sure they have the cybersecurity policies set in place, and so my team will help them accomplish all that.
Yeah. And so, from your perspective, I know you guys work a lot in email security and you've kind of built tools and stuff. What's the current state of that? What threats do companies need to be looking out for the most? I feel like we're talking about it a lot and we're hearing about it a lot, but what's the real situation with it right now?
So we've been seeing a lot of threats in terms of the email security and also utilizing AI automations that the hackers are using to compromise or getting into the system. So it's very important to always be proactive when it comes to cybersecurity and not reactive. And that's what we'll always talk about with our clients is making sure that um, yeah, they're being proactive about it. So the most common threats that we see are phishing and credential harvesting is one of them. Business email compromise, where the attackers impersonate the executives or any of their vendors. We will also see ransomware delivered through malicious attachments or links through emails. And not to forget about the supply chain attacks, when their organization's trusted partner is compromised first. And that's another way that the hackers get into the system. So even with the best filters, attackers are getting through by exploiting the trust and timing. Sending the right message to the right person at the wrong moment is really what's happening.
Phishing has always been one of the biggest attack vectors, and it's obviously still successful. Why is it still so effective after all these years? We've implemented all these filters, all the email domains are working their best to try to identify spam and hackers. Why is it still so successful?
Absolutely. So phishing works because it doesn't just exploit technology, it exploits the people. So the attackers have mastered that art by triggering emotions like urgency, fear, or curiosity to prompt like a quick decision. What makes it even more dangerous today is how personalized the context and aware of the phishing has become. So instead of just having the generic spam, we now see messages that reference real projects that the organization is currently working on or referring to meetings or invoices. So it makes it even more credible and convincing. And with the use of AI now, that's even worse because they can replicate the voices and the writing of the executives as well. So in the end, phishing is a form of social engineering and technology can block a lot, but what it comes down to is the education and awareness that truly close the gap.
Even those of us in technology, in cybersecurity, I mean, we've all clicked on something, you know? I mean, it's just psychology. And like you said, it's not just about the tech. And I tell people that all the time when we're looking at different test types. Everyone kind of silos testing the technology and then testing the humans. And I wish people would take a more holistic approach and do them together because that's what the hackers are doing. They're using technology and human psychology to make that the most successful. And I feel like a lot of times IT leaders, security leaders, they kind of see it as two different issues, but it's all together on the hacker side. So I think on the defensive side, putting those two ideas together is really important too. And you mentioned, some of the common attacks that are happening right now. What are some common mistakes that companies are making that's kind of allowing for that?
Absolutely. So one of the key mistakes that stand out when we work with organizations is just relying solely on the built-in protections, such as like the Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, without adding any advanced filtering or any AI-based analysis that are out there now when it comes to email security. Another thing is that not enforcing multi-factor authentication (MFA) across all networks. That's one of the easiest and first things that should be done, and it's also a very effective way to safeguard your environment. Also, ignoring any domain authentication protocols such as this SPF records, DKIM records, DMARC records, which prevent from having your email spoofed. And most importantly, treating user awareness not just as a checkbox exercise. And it should be an ongoing culture of security when it comes to user training and awareness and doing your phishing assessments. So overall, email security isn't just something you configure once and forget about it. It's a constant thing that needs attention and improvement.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think whenever there's a system that takes over some of the security, we just assume it's doing all of the security. It's kind of the same gap we see in cloud security. Like when everyone started moving to AWS and GCP, because there were simple, like they do some, misconfiguration tracking and some vulnerability assessments on there. And like when that happened, it felt like everyone was like, okay, so we don't need cloud pen tests anymore. We don't need cloud audits, et cetera. And it's similar to email, like because you see Gmail doing a good job with the spam tracking, you just kind of leave it there and assume that it's, you move on to other things and it gets backburnered. So I think that's a really good call out. And yeah, I mean, the treating it like a check the box for the training is something I'm really passionate about because I think we do social engineering training so wrong. Like it's become this PowerPoint of nothing. And, I'd love to see phishing training move more into real world examples like, hey, this is a real email that came out. And when they clicked on it, this is what happened. And this is how the wire transfer, like I just think we need to base it so much more in real world for people to really understand it, digest it, and kind of understand why these guidelines are in place. And like you said, stronger policies overall are obviously going to have to be part of it. You mentioned the other tools because, like, obviously people are relying too much on the existing system, but there's also just so many email security tools right now. And I know I have tool fatigue. I'm sure everyone listening has tool fatigue. How do you kind of battle that? Or are there places companies should start in terms of email security as they're looking at all those?
Yeah, I definitely understand. It's so easy to get lost in the sea of tools right now. But there's a solid foundation in what matters the most. And what we recommend is always, having the advanced email filtering and threat protection and put in place, which do detect suspicious links and attachments, and making sure that the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records have been set up properly, having your multi-factor authentication set up, and also taking a look at your internal procedures of your company and making sure that these procedures have check marks where it would check that this task that they're asked to do is authenticated and it's really legitimate task that they're supposed to do. When it comes to, for example, wire transfer, check with the person who's asking for it by phone or not just replying to an email. So that's where internal procedures come into play, and putting the right ones in place are very important, as well as training the employees and conducting phishing simulations where they can see actual examples, what are the indicators and what to look for in these emails. So once all these fundamentals are put in place, you can layer on threat intelligence, such as like AI-based monitoring and all these tools. But we want to keep the fundamentals simple to get everyone started.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency to kind of just like stack tools instead of taking the time to figure out like what the right tool is, putting that in place the correct way. Like you said, there's so many things that we set up and we never configure to be the way we need it for efficiency, security. So taking that little bit of extra time on the front end when you're setting up these tools is really important. And especially when it comes to the AI, like what you're allowing it access to. Like there's so many permissions and filters and things that need to be taken more care of on the front end of those. And like you said, upkept continuously. And when you were talking about the wire fraud and like processes, one of the things that's made that so hard is the remote work and hybrid work and, we're in a totally different world than we were even 6 years ago. So, how has that kind of changed it, and are there different procedures we should be doing now that we're so remote?
Yeah, I mean, remote and hybrid work has completely changed cybersecurity. Employees are now checking email from personal devices, from home Wi-Fi networks, from cloud platforms outside the traditional office protections. So that has led to a surge in contextual phishing. That's where attackers use themes like virtual meetings, file sharing, or any updates from the HR department to trick employees. So what we've seen more is our account takeover attempts due to reused passwords or unsecured home networks. So that's why, endpoint protection, strong authentication, strong passwords, even using password keepers is very important to making sure that you have passwords that are strong and also not being showing up in the dark web, so they're used by attackers. And also, again, it goes back to ongoing user education. So that's more important than ever.
Do you see your clients, because I feel like we see people starting to take it more seriously. I won't say they put proactive security on the front burner, but I feel like people are now taking it all more seriously, talking about it a little bit more. For your clients, do you see like that becoming more part of the culture, or is it still kind of everyone's kind of resistant to it, or what are you finding with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, we find it that it's become more of the culture. It's absolutely critical. So, I mean, technology can block majority of the threats, but the last few percent that slips through can cause a bigger damage, right? So that's where the human judgment comes into play. And what we've done at Hammer IT Consulting, we built personalized cybersecurity trainings and phishing simulations. So it's directly focused on each of the individual users and how they're currently are doing with cybersecurity and phishing, and personalized based on their current understanding. And the whole program creates a more of an awareness based on a personal level using interactive and continuous education through that. So when the employees understand what real phishing looks like and experience it as safely through simulations, they become a stronger part of the defense, not the weakest.
Yeah. No, and it's just like you said, just having the conversations is the first step. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
there's budget and time and everything else, but just a simple 5 minutes at the end of a team meeting, can make a huge difference. So, it's just kind of starting with those baby steps. And we often have people ask about like some advanced 0-day vulnerability that just came out. And it's like, yes, but you have like crazy email policies. Like, let's fix some of those first, and then we'll worry about the crazy advanced stuff. So, just kind of starting with basics, and especially, companies are about to start doing their planning for next year. And I think it's important that they build that into their roadmap and the plans they have for next year. Can you share a story, I guess, without naming any client names, of just like a real world email security incident that either your team has handled or helped afterward help navigate?
Absolutely. So, we have one client in the financial sector that received a very convincing email from what appeared to be from one of their long-term vendors, and it would requested an urgent wire transfer to a new account. The message itself looked very legitimate. It had the right signatures, tone, and referred to real past invoices. So, unfortunately, the company CEO had just completed one of our phishing awareness sessions, and they immediately flagged it for review. So, our team took a look at it, reviewed it, and that the vendor's email account had been compromised. So the client's vendors was the one who got compromised in that case. And through our awareness training, they were able to see that and flag it right away. So that was one thing that this type of awareness likely prevented a six-figure loss for the company.
Yeah, and I love that you talk about supply chain a few times, because I think there's so many businesses out there that still think like we won't be the target, and it's like, yes, but every vendor you're using is definitely a target, which means therefore you are the end user of that hacker. And I think it's just like still not valued enough when we talk about these security conversations. So I like that you talked about supply chain. And then one other thing I wanted to ask you, because I hear a lot of people worried about implementing AI type of vendors into their email because then it can, see all of their whatever it has access to, potentially send that back up. But I heard you mention using AI from the defensive perspective and using it to kind of prevent that. So, obviously AI is what everyone's talking about right now. And I do think phishing specifically or social engineering is one of the things that evolved fastest with the LLMs and the generative AI over the last few years. So how is that kind of shaped and where do you see that going over the next couple years in terms of specifically the defensive AI tools and how clients can use those?
Well, AI is reshaping both sides of the battlefield. I mean, on the offensive side, hackers are using AI to create highly personalized, grammatically perfect messages that mimic the real communication of the organization. But defensively, AI gives us the powerful tools too. And now we're able to detect behavioral anomalies, identify patterns of compromises even faster, and predict anything emerging threats before they even strike. So it helps us in that as well. So specifically at Hammer IT Consulting, we're using AI through our Hammer Spam solution to detect impersonation attempts and fraud patterns in real time. So the future of cybersecurity will be all about understanding intent and not just scanning for keywords overall. So AI has
Yeah.
changed the environment tremendously.
And I think that's really important because now that you think, every salesperson who's on the ethical side is now also using AI for their sales messaging. So when both sides are using the exact same tool, of course, it's going to be more and more realistic. And salespeople are starting to sound more like hackers, and hackers are starting to sound more like, legitimate users. And so the line's getting blurred for sure. And yeah, the AI detection, I mean, AI is already in everyone's email. Everything you're using, those vendors are using AI. So I think making sure that you are careful about your vendors, that you're setting up permissions and stuff the correct way, and then using AI to your advantage because the hackers are using it. So you might as well use it to your advantage as well. And then I guess lastly, for kind of small to medium sized businesses where budget is a concern, they don't have the budget to implement all these thousands of tools. What's like the single most important step that everyone listening could do right now before end of year to improve their security posture?
Yeah, if you do one thing today, turn on multi-factor authentication for every email account. So turning on MFA, it's free, it's simple, and it prevents 90% of all account takeovers. So that would be one thing to definitely do today. And another thing I would recommend is reviewing your procedures, internal procedures, and processes.
Yeah, switching to MFA, everyone, it's a little toggle. It's one little click. Just go do it. It'll take you 3 minutes. Go do it right now. Please, that should be table stakes going into 2026, and then we can start working on the rest of the vulnerabilities from there. Uh, but yeah, any final thoughts, I guess, kind of wrapping up? Anything you want everyone to hear or take away?
Well, it's important to, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, is to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's the name of the game, is always staying ahead and looking out what can happen and being prepared for it. So
And remind me the name of your tool. Is it Hammer Spam?
it's the Hammer Spams tool, and we also have a product solution called Hammer Secure.
So we'll link both of those products with this podcast and obviously, Dr. Hammer's information as well. So if you have any questions about this stuff, please go to them and ask all the questions. They really do take proactive security really seriously. And thanks for being on today and kind of walking us through that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.